Good morning, everybody, and welcome to this week's VIN-dow with Robert Hollinshead. Good day to you, Bob.
Top of the morning to you, Shawnee. I love that picture you showed me walking the dogs up here in the hemlock forest in the snow. It's beautiful.
Yep, so those are some snowmobile trails. We're knee-deep in winter up here. I think
Beautiful.
halfway through winter, and yeah, it's going to be a while, long while for us. A little follow-up to last week's chauffeur knowledge conversation we were having, and I was kind of bugging you, trying to prompt you about AI and its introduction into the car business and changes it can make. And well, I'll turn it over to you because I think everyone should hear this.
Well, there's a couple things. I don't know if I'm going to have enough brains to circle back to, our perception of how the NADA convention was, but I think it may have something. Hopefully, I'll remember to drag it back through in terms of the chauffeur knowledge thing. But I believe that's the capital. The capital of chauffeur knowledge is walking through the building, listening to experts telling car dealers how to do things. And when you peel back the first, there's not even a second layer of the onion, the credibility starts to melt. You understand? When you question things of someone who's never done it, and yet they're selling you something that they're the expert of. You follow me? It's kind of like having your investment counselor telling you how to put your money into the stock market, and yet he's never done it for himself. You see what I'm saying to you? It's kind of a similar thing. Like, if you're so good at what you're doing, why aren't you doing it on your own? What do you need my money for to invest if you're going to tell me you're the best at it? You see what I'm saying? So it's kind of like the same thing. I get the same innate reaction to listening to people telling us things. Now, that being said, that leads to what I'm actually watching on the interdaily auction market. So everybody says Cox this and Cox that and Cox the other thing, right? You like it or don't like it, all that. Everybody has their opinion and very, critical of things, and everything's too much money. One thing I'm telling you that they got going on, that I'm not a critic of anything because it's easy to criticize. It's hard to do things. I'm definitely an expert at that, listening to people about whatever we do or whatever, right? So that's definitely not the point. But here is the point. For I don't know how many, maybe it's a year, it could be more because I lose track of time. When you're on the auction block and you're watching a screen, they have the heat map thing where it shows you who's logged in, how many people are logged in, where their cursor is, and who's on the end of that cursor. So the name of the bidder, where the cursor is moving, if they're ready to bid, much more importantly, how many times they've bid, what they've bid on, what the characteristics of that car is. Now we talk about AI. So AI is things that I don't know what it is. You don't know what it is. Nobody does, but it's going to change the world because Elon Musk said so, and I believe anything he says. So experientially, you understand that, Tony? Not chauffeur knowledge, but actually watching and understanding and then thinking about the potential of this. Because we've talked about this a number of times. In other words, the only way to sell a car and actually get extra cash value for the car is at the end of an auctioneer's hose, right? That's my full and total absolute belief of my entire life. But as I think about where this goes, and you log in with your auction access number, and you're a buyer, or I'm watching buyers all over the country, in Dallas and PA and Orlando and Chicago and Kansas and San Francisco, in California, and you see who's logged in, you see what they're bidding on. Now you're doing it because you're seeing, Merlex is bidding on a car in Atlanta, but they bid on a car in Dallas, but they bid on our cars. So Merlex, okay, that's good, great customer, all the rest of it, right? Atlanta Motor Cars, unbelievably good customer, right? It's been customers since way before simulcast. But I'm watching them bid here, there, and the other place. Now that's me watching, and I happen to catch it. Our system obviously tells us how many cars we sold them, how many years ago we sold them, all the rest of it. But the system that they're actually using on the auction block at Cox is unbelievable because they're not doing it casually. They're doing it scientifically. They're collecting every single move of the of the cursor to know how many today you bid on, how many you bought on, how many you were the last bidder on, how many you were there, and what the characteristics are. So no human being could do that, but the computer does it and laughs about it because it's so simple for them to collect the information. So when we talk about critical mass and we talk about best end user, because best end user really is, like what we need to understand, who is the best end user on that day on that VIN, standing next to all the big shots, but then someone else put their hand up and was the last bidder. That makes them the best end user on that car. However, do they duplicate that activity, or is that a one-off? You see, now we're starting to get into information that means something. If it was a one-off, it means nothing. That means he's got a customer. He's going to charge him $200 profit, and he bought the car. Everybody's pissed because he had a retail customer. All that bullshit, that's normal. It's always been going on since Christ was on the cross. But now when you think about the science of collecting that information, it's no longer what you would call speculative. It's scientific. And what you would do with that information to actually notify, because here's a VIN number, 1Z 14 do, and you this week have bid on 63 other cars similar to that. Would you actually put that VIN number and the location and the speculative price, knowing precisely what that price is going to be, to make it the most efficient marketplace that ever existed in the history of the world? You would. And if you did that with, depending on the geographic circumstance, the price of the car, if shipping is going to it's a Camry or a Honda, well, that car's not going from New York to San Francisco, because the $1,200 of getting it there in a week of waiting, even if they want to buy that car in California, when they do, they're definitely not going to retail it to the market because there's too many others similar to that are available closer. It's the same thing with junk. In other words, it's never going to, but junk would be more efficient, because if in a general geographic area, northeast, southwest, whatever, and understanding the cost of transportation from X to Y, you follow me, Shawnee? This also goes with exports, exporters, known exporters. You'll be able to capture every single detail of what they're bidding on, how much they'll pay, and where they are. Are you following along? They have, at this moment, in my estimation, whether they know it or not, I'm sure they know it. I don't want to diminish the potential long-range understanding of what we're talking about. But as a participant, and I'm watching this will be the end of what we do for a living. In other words, as we do it, because that AI will know who is the best end user for what amount in a billionth, 100 billionth of a second. So when you invite 30 other people with the exact same criteria, matching circumstances, there will never be a no sale. There will never be a car that gets sold under the market. The only thing that could happen is the knucklehead who has to have that one particular car for a particular case will be the best end user once and done. But it doesn't really matter, because the seller gets the best end user benefit. You see what I'm saying? It's not CarMax's middle of the mud curve, bell curve, where they're getting cars to a point where a seller almost can sell, and they're never overpaying, so they're going to be best end users on certain middle mud cars, no question. No, there are enough of them where you wear out the other participants. They're going to get their share, no question about it, and not overpay. But in anomalies, which really amount to a large percentage of cars, bad ones, high priced, high mileage, bad Carfax, 13 bad Carfaxes, or the ultimate car on the other end of it. You see, these are both cars that CarMax or some other fancy buyer is not going to be interested in being the best end user. But the machine will know this, Shawnee. The machine will know it. The information, the data that cannot be extracted once it's in there. If they have anybody with enough brains to understand how to use it, I think what we do for a living will be dramatically altered to the point where it's not coming back. Once that cat's out of the bag, you ain't getting it back in the bag. Now, they may not be thinking along these lines, or maybe they don't have what you would, maybe they're packed full of chauffeur knowledge people that wouldn't understand what to do with it if they had it in their hands. But when an experiential person is inserted into that mix, we're in for a very different set of circumstances, because that data is irrefutably accurate and will be a game changer. You follow me? In my estimation, I'm actually watching it. I'm listening to it. I'm asking other guys that are watching this information. Oh yeah, they can see them bidding on a car. So behind the scenes, all the things they're collecting, it's not just a casual thing on that day on that particular car. It's a profound thing where all that data is piling up and piling up and piling up based on an auction access number, based on who, how many, how often, what price, what color, what things that is will be. So it's not what's going to be the next great thing in the car business, the wholesale business. You could sit and have all kinds of farts coming out of your face, right? With, oh yeah, well I did this and I'm going to do that. Okay, let this AI thing take over, and you can pack your bags and get out of the room, brother, because this one's going to change everything. My opinion, for what that's worth.
Well, and I think if you think about it from the independent dealer stand, or anybody that has got a franchise stores with a used lot, you better figure out your niche, get really good at it. So
1,000% to understand your geographic demographic. You understand your economic bracket of who your customers are. And basically, if you're a car dealer, you almost will go on cruise control. And you won't even have the opportunity to press the button when you want cruise control to go on, because they're just going to let you know where the cruise control button is. You dig what I'm saying to you? I'm going to take it one step further, because I've been thinking about this. They actually will be able to tell you when you're a moron and you shouldn't be buying that car for that amount of money. You see that, Sean? If they know your characteristics of what you've done in the past, multiple times, interdaily, interweekly, interannual, right? And somehow or other, they're going to be able to put a button in there. Hey, dumbass, are you sure you want to buy that car? You see that? They don't have to say it. They could just say, warning, this don't look like you screwball. You follow that? And that is not hard to do. It's really simple to do, because once you got the data about, when I hate to use the word data, it's disgusting, right? Once you got the person's pecker tracks, right? It's going to be interesting. It's going to be really interesting. The angst about finding cars, I think, is gone. Oh, Jesus Christ, I got to find a buyer. You know, he's stealing, he cheated, he doesn't know what he's doing. Look, he bought a car with a dent. You see that? All of them things are kind of going to be like a thing you ain't got to worry about, brother. You following it?
Yeah. It's kind of like intuitive. Well, that's all AI is taking what we've all kind of learned over the years. It's like intuitively knowing who fixes, Versa transmissions. And firing off that lead.
Absolutely correct.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. But worse than that, you're the one with your cursor giving them real-time information all day, every day. So they absolutely know when you logged in and put your information in 860023. You understand? From that moment forward, what you searched, how you searched it, when you searched it, how often you searched it, what you bid on, what you didn't bid on, what you bid on and arbitrated. You see, all of these things. Yeah. See, that's also another thing that AI absolutely today could do if anybody had the brains to use the information. We've always put in common problems. Where's common problems come from? In our tool, in AccuTrade. It comes from us getting our nuts knocked off in arbitration on a particular first 10 digits of a VIN. And in other words, a statistically significant number of times that first 10 digits has a particular problem in arbitration. That's not random shit we put in there. That's skin in the game, experiential knowledge that hopefully helps other people understand that when you're looking at this car, there's a high probability that it has a big be with a thing and another thing. You follow me? Because we know that. The manufacturer might not know it, but we know it because our balls got knocked off 2 days after we sold it, and therefore we accumulate the data, not AI, but kind of a starting of AI. And when you think about AI, and now they have all of the information about every car that got arbitrated, how many miles there were, you understand? How many accidents there were? All of these things, it's going to change. You ain't going to be sitting there all day long doing anything other than looking at the things, and you're going to have people, theoretically, if they have enough brains to productize it, those cars are going to be landing in your lap. You will not be spending, a few years ago, I did a survey. If you're in the wholesale business, or you're in the car business, and how much time of your day do you spend searching for cars? I don't know if you remember that, Shawnee, but I think we had about 1,000 respondents, and not surprising to me, but on average, it was 75% of a car dealer's day, a used car dealer's day, that he spent searching for inventory. Many were in the mid to upper 90s, how much time they spent in a day looking for hamburgers. You follow me? If this system of what we're talking about, which will happen, whether it's this week, month, year, or after I'm croaked and living in my mausoleum, it's going to happen. If this were to go into place, and a guy or girl that has their little lot didn't have to worry about hunting and pecking and doing, Davy Crockett routines, doing lifelong searches, looking for a junk under a rock somewhere, right? If you didn't have to do that, it would relieve a huge amount of anxiety and pressure from poking around for cars. The other thing that this will do, it will level set the pricing for cars from a retail standpoint. Then it goes back to your geographic, demographic, socioeconomic standing of your customer base. If you're selling them credit, or if you're selling them cars. If you're selling them credit, the car don't even mean nothing. It's just a question of how much you're going to be able to get hocked, right? The whole thing to me is very fascinating.
We really do become traders. Let me pitch you one more if you have the time. So let's. I always think about how dealers are basically traders, and maybe this is becoming more and more a trader, but they always need to be jabbing the market to see what they could be a best end user for, right? So we always say, you can't sell caravans at a Mercedes dealership. Well,
right.
You don't try until, the AI tells you to. No, not in this case. And you just always have to try. So do you think that it's just going to be eliminated, or?
No, because there you're also talking about something different. Because if you're in a, let's call it the main line of Philadelphia, right, where it's blue blood and it's this and that, right? You're not selling the Caribbean there. You may be able to wholesale the Caribbean because you traded a good one from a good neighborhood where it's not all banged down the side. You understand? And you will be able to pick up a G or 2 Gs or 3 Gs wholesale. But for a retail customer to walk in and say that's going to be the best end user, it physically is impossible. Now, that same Mercedes dealer that may be rural, it could be in a some place where, the population doesn't necessarily make, $280,000 on average a year. You follow me? It could be in a $40,000 demographic. And that's a different story altogether. The probability they would have a customer that. So this is the broad, when I refer to the broad brushstroke of chauffeur knowledge people, we want to paint the brushstroke where one size fits all. It never fits all. You have to take the other criteria into account in order to come up with a brush that actually will paint that canvas. You understand? You can't say it's this way with a Hyundai dealer, therefore it's that way with an Audi dealer. No, it really ain't. You see what I'm saying to you? It's different. So you have to be careful with, when you start saying, we're going to paint this room, what brush are you using? Where's it at? What is it, a southern facing room? Is it a northern facing room? You got to take all the things into consideration. Otherwise, your conclusion and your activity is going to be, I would call it, not going to find the best results. Does that make sense to you, my friend?
So that could keep the car industry pretty interesting, because
Yeah.
if it does
Where
go
you
down the
are,
AI
who your
route,
customer is.
yeah,
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I hope it doesn't get boring, because it's never a boring day.
No.
You want to finish off with NADA? What was the feedback from there?
Well, is I probably will save that for another day, Shawnee. We're gonna let the feathers settle before we start with that. But it has a lot to do, in my opinion, with chauffeur knowledge. Once again, if I'm not mistaken. But I'm having some meetings in the next day or two to talk to people about things, and I would just like to get more feedback before I start throwing nonsense out there. Not that anybody gives a shit anyway. See you, pal.